Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Needens. I'm one of the social workers with the Cognitive Care Network team at KU Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. We're going to spend a few minutes talking about anger. We've had some discussion about depression. We've had some discussion about anxiety. There's an array of feelings that go along with being diagnosed with a cognitive disorder. And oftentimes they're all connected, and we're going to talk about that some. Some of the time they're not connected. I mean, that they're connected to diagnosis, connected to our own history, feelings, experiences, environment, etc., but separate from each other. And so it's important to talk about them as both braided together and also individually. So when we think about the experience of anger, some of you would say, I'm not angry, I'm just frustrated. Some of you would say, I'm not angry, I just get irritated. Some of you would tell me, I never get angry, and your families would tell me, you get angry. And so all of these may be true. We may not, we may want to consider what the spectrum is as we define things. I mean, is irritability the same as anger? Yeah, it's a softer version. Is frustration the same as anger? Yes, it is a variety of anger. Is it possible to be angry and other people think that and we not objectively see it ourselves? And the answer to that is yes. And so we pay attention to all of those things. Is it normal to be angry at times? And the answer to that is yes. So let's look at the variety of possible reasons. One of those options may be a sense of unfairness. In other words, very connected to our grief process. And we're going to be talking about that in, I think, the next Mindful Minute, grief work. So some of it can be that there's this wide expanse between what we expected and what is. And the diagnosis threw us for a loop. Sometimes it's related to relationship shifts. As you adjust to your diagnosis, your family has to do that same kind of adjustment. And for some family members, what that will result in is what some of you who have been diagnosed will say to me, my family's being overprotective, or I can do things, but they think I can't do things. And that has to all be sorted. If you have MCI or early dementia, that has to all be sorted because your family wants to help. They want to make sure they're helping sufficiently. They want to protect you. And at the same time, you want to hold on to your independence. And both of those things need to take place. But figuring out where that line is tricky. And as they adjust and you adjust, that requires some pretty open conversation. We'll talk about that in a bit. Depression, we talked about the possibility of being braided together. Sometimes having acute depression, major depression, or dysphoric levels of depression can mean that you're more irritable, that you have these episodes of anger. It can be specific to the type of dementia you have. Sometimes, for example, in vascular dementia, it may impact, the emotional center of our brain at a different time frame than it might in another dementia, and there may be, periods of anger in that way. So sometimes it can be related to specific type of dementia, and then lack of access to coping strategies. And this is true with depression, it's true with anxiety, it's true with fear, and it's certainly true with anger. That, we manage life through a set of coping strategies. For example, if you lean to the perfectionistic side, if you lean to the control side, and you don't have access to being in charge, and you don't have access to things being done exactly as you expected them to be done, that may trigger some episodes of anger. Or you don't have access to focusing your mind on work or productivity, that some of the positive experiences that manage some of that are no longer available. So we think about that. And there's always other. There's a whole bunch of reasons for anger. And some of that is just related to how we resolve all the experiences of life. A diagnosis of MCI or an early dementia can trigger this life review. As part of some of that looking back, there can be some experiences of anger. So what do we do about it? If anger is normal, if being irritable is normal at times, if being frustrated is normal at times, if that's connected to grief, if it's more common than uncommon, then what in the heck do we do about it? What are our options here? First and foremost, we need to be very clear about depression. And if you're seeing frequent episodes of anger, if it surprises you, surprises others, listen to family and friends. You may not, we're none the best judge of ourselves in terms of being objective. So let's utilize all the resources around us to get feedback. But if that anger is significant and distressing, perhaps we look at other depressive symptoms in combination and address that. Very important to pay attention to depression. Attend to any medical kinds of issues, pain. For some of you, MCI or early dementia is not the only medical condition that you're dealing with. Maybe you're dealing with chronic pain. Maybe you're dealing with some disease process that evokes intermittent pain. Or maybe you're a person that even with acute pain, you try to work through it. And for all of those issues, it can make us more irritable. So let's pay attention to pain, and let's pay attention to pain management. Sleep schedule. Some of you would tell me that it has been your pattern to stay up very, very late, and you didn't require much sleep. Guess what? You're going to require more sleep. And the truth may be that you needed more sleep all along. So let's really look at a healthy sleep regimen, and going to bed at a certain time and getting up at a certain time and making sure we get enough sleep. That's really important. Can that make us irritable? Of course it can. Of course it can. Open conversation about needs. So really talking to your spouses, your close friends, your adult children, whoever it is that is part of your close network of support system. Let them know what you need and hear them when they say, you may not be aware, but I know that you're missing a few more times taking your medicine than you think you are. Listen, talk together, because indeed they may be overprotective and they may be stepping in to help you at times when you don't need help. That should be a dialogue. And yes, they may be stepping in to help at a time you don't think you need help, but you do, and you need to hear them in those situations. So it is an open dialogue so that they're not doing too much or too little, and you're not getting locked in a situation where you feel like you're diminished in some way, or that you're putting yourself in a fragile situation because you're rejecting. So it just takes open conversation. There is so much positives out there, and the more we're in open dialogue with our families, the better, whoever our support network is. Process grief. I would say, when you're dealing with MCI, mild cognitive impairment, or even these early dementias, really the symptoms you're experiencing is very subtle oftentimes, and you're doing well in so many ways. But let's be honest, there's a reaction to having this diagnosis. And it does trigger a grief process. It doesn't mean that your mind is on the end. It doesn't mean that you don't have lots and lots of time of good years and good experiences. It simply means that when someone gets a diagnosis of this nature, there invariably is a set of feelings attached. And they just need to be processed. I would say that's true of any grief experience, that it is better shared and discussed. It doesn't mean that someone's going to have some magic answer. It doesn't mean that it's going to, change some particular outcome, other than, we move to this point of acceptance and growing and opportunity to see life in even a new way. Sometimes that means considering counseling. And that doesn't mean years and years, might only mean a couple of sessions, but for some people, that kind of dialogue and processing of the feelings that bubble up, if it's that gap between what you expected and what is, if it's unresolved issues from the past, whatever it is, if it's simply, anxiety and anger and fear and all of that related to the diagnosis, counseling can be an avenue to process some of that. And then meaningful activity. And we've talked about that in relationship to sadness. We've talked about that in relationship to anxiety. It certainly is part of the equation for anger as well, that we shift to using what we can to be involved in meaningful activity. That may be chores around the house. It may be helping your neighbors. It may be volunteerism. It may be babysitting grandkids, whatever it is. But to focus our minds on what we can do. Now, I can't leave the conversation of anger without addressing fears around anger. Because I've had many, many conversations with people diagnosed with MCI or especially early Alzheimer's disease, who have expressed to me that one of their greatest fears is, will they become combative with their family? They've heard stories of people getting agitated and have even hurt their family. And they wonder if that's going to happen to them. And they wonder if it's inevitable at some point in the disease that people become difficult or hard to manage or mean. And I want to tell you, the answer is no. It isn't inevitable. In fact, the more we pay attention to things like depression, etc., the chances of that are very small. Those of you who have been diagnosed early and really become warriors in this process, there's not just an implication for now. There's an implication for those years and years and years down the road, if and when you ever get there. And none of this stuff is inevitable. No, it's most people do not become combative. No, most people do not become mean. That is not something that you need to fear. What we do is pay attention to quality of life, and we pay attention to mitigating things like depression, pain, etc. That's not only going to help you now, that's going to help you all the way through. So with that, so this experience of anger, if you notice yourself and you're getting angry quickly about things, your frustration threshold is very, very low. It's impacting your life. It may even be connected to other symptoms like not wanting to be around people, just wanting to stay in bed, etc. It may be a time to talk to your doctor. And as always, we pay attention to three things: frequency. If you get irritated once in a while, that's normal stuff, right? Even if you have an anger outburst, but you're working on grief and sorting things through and readjusting life, no one's going to overly react to that. But if you're having multiple episodes of anger a day, if you notice that really it's overtaking other feelings, if it's connected to other depressive symptoms on a frequent basis, it's lasting, and the intensity is such that it's concerning to you or others, that may be a conversation with your physician. And I encourage you to do so. As always, if there are questions, concerns, you want to process any of the information that we discussed today, please feel free to reach out to us at the Cognitive Care Network. Take good care, and we will see you again.